right, let's get started today on our backs. So come to your mat, lie down, and up to you how you want the legs. Just find a comfortable position. So either soles of the feet on the mat or the legs extended out in front of you, but heads resting down, backs of the arms resting down, backs of the hands touching something, ground outside of the mat, whatever it is. Close the eyes and start to take a deep breath in through the nose, lifting the belly, then the chest. And on the exhale, sigh it out the mouth. We're doing 2 more deep breaths like that one, cleansing breaths. Deep inhale in through the nose. Exhale out of the mouth, let it go. Last one like that, deep inhale in through the nose. If you get to the top before me, just hold it. Exhale out of the mouth. This time, deep breath in through the nose. Take it back out through the nose. Ujjayi breath, come right into it. Sometimes our Ujjayi breath is harder to find when we first end up on our mats. Those first 3 breaths could really be helpful, a helpful way to get there quicker. Just by exhaling out of the mouth, if there's anything going on in the head, the body that you just need to let go of and disconnect from, it's a good way to kind of push it out, that energy out, so you're making space for you and your practice. And if you haven't already, extend the legs out in front of you. Reach the arms overhead, just coming into a big, long stretch on your mat. You can just reach the arms overhead. Some of you like to hook the thumbs or the fingers somehow. If that helps you get longer arms, that's a good idea. Belly hugs in a little bit. Legs are long. Then bring the knees in toward the chest. You can rock side to side. Interlace the fingers back behind the head and just rest the head in the hands. So with the head down in the hands, extend the legs out in front of you, hovering the heels away from the mat. So with the head down, core is already turning on. So you could keep the head down if you want to. Some of you like more of a challenge, so maybe you lift the head up and you're doing flutter kicks. So point the toes, lift one foot and then the other, and you'll just go side to side. And it's a small movement. So when you move the legs a bigger movement, it's actually easier. So keep it as small as you can. Remember, you can always rest the head down or keep it lifted. But if it's lifted, the hands are supporting the head, not the neck. We don't want to bulk up there. So as you hug the belly in, keep the breath going, legs going. And then extend the legs out. Just stay the way that you are. See if you can come up a little bit higher with the chest and then come back halfway. And we're doing pulses like this. Exhale up, inhale back. 2 more. Exhale up, inhale back. Last one. Exhale up, inhale back. Hug the knees in toward the chest. Let that go. So short core work, but definitely effective. As you go side to side with the knees, feeling the hips roll around on the mat, and set the feet down onto the mat. Roll over to one side, use the hands to bring yourself up to seated. And once you get to seated, let's take an easy cross-legged seat. Grab on to the knees. And on the inhale, lift the chest up, still hugging the belly in. Maybe the gaze goes up, but you're definitely arching the back. Then on the exhale, round the whole spine, chin comes in toward the chest. And you'll do cat-cow seated like this, going at your own pace, following your own breath. Inhaling And eyes can be open or closed. It's up to you, whichever one you're more comfortable with. Do one more cycle, up and back. Coming back to a neutral spine, just walk the hands forward, come forward into your hip opener. Close the eyes, let the head and the neck go. And walk the hands back in. Bring the hands back behind you, lean back, switch the crossing of the legs, other shin in front, and you'll come forward again for the hip opening on this side, maybe shifting side to side so you feel even on the sit bones. Then you can start to walk the hands forward, close the eyes. You may be in a different spot than you were on the first side. Just find where you find a similar sensation to the first side, even if it looks different. And you'll start to come back up to seated. Bring the feet over to one side. Come forward to hands and knees. And once you come forward to hands and knees, take a moment to stack the shoulders over the wrists, spread the fingers, have those index fingers pointing forward or maybe a little bit out. And then keep the upper body so chest is reaching forward, belly's hugging in, arms are squeezing together, but you're not locking in the joints. So with the knees down on the mat, put a little bend in the elbows and then go all the way straight with the elbows. And then see if you can have the tiniest bend in the elbows, one you can't see, but one you can feel, so that the muscles have to work a little harder coming into plank pose. So step the feet back behind you. Keep those arms. Notice if you're trying to lock the elbows. That's a different version of plank pose. You're not using muscles, you're just putting weight into the joints. So it is important to find a slight bend. And it's really most important for those of us that can truly lock our joints. I'm a good example of that. I can and just hang out in this pose, but I don't do it when I teach this class. Hug the belly in, lift the tops of the thighs, heels right over the balls of the feet. Chest is reaching forward, gaze is going forward, shoulders away from the ears. Ujjayi breath. Experiencing whatever plank is bringing up. Knees can come down whenever you want. But that core work we did at the beginning definitely sets you up for a better, stronger plank. Come all the way down to the mat, lying down onto your stomach. Tops of the feet come down, arms reach back behind you, so palms face one another. Keeping the feet hip width distance apart, press into the tops of the feet, lift and spread the chest. Not your biggest back bend, just a little one to start to get into the back side of the body, warming that up. Then exhale, release. Let's rest. You can make a pillow with the hands and rest the head down, or bring the arms down by the sides and bring the head to one side. Two more of those back bends. Reach the arms back behind you, squeeze the palms of the hands together. They're facing one another, tops of the feet down, lift and spread the chest, tailbone back, maybe a little bit higher than the last one, but not as high as you can go. Keep those legs fired up. and release. Turn the head the other way or just rest the head down onto the hands. Last one, lift the head, arms reach back behind you, squeeze the hands together, press into the tops of the feet, lift and spread the chest. Keep reaching the heart forward, even though those arms are pulling back. Maybe you hover the feet. Don't go real high with the feet. Keep them low without touching the mat. Just go for length. So all the muscles in the legs are working to keep the legs straight, similar to when you were on your back doing the flutter kicks. And gently release, rest. So you let everything go, ankles can roll out, legs relax. Maybe you lift the feet up and move the feet side to side like windshield wipers. Only if that doesn't bother your lower back. For most of us, it's a nice release in the lower back, but some of us feel tenderness when we do this. So if that's the case for you, then skip it. And feet come back down to the mat, hands to the mat, come up to hands and knees, child's pose, balasana. Hips go back as much as the knees will allow. Forehead comes down to the mat or a block, blanket, whatever you have. Walk those hands forward as far as you can without taking the shoulders forward. Shoulders are working back toward the hips. Then shift forward to hands and knees, back to tabletop, lining the shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees. Reach the right arm up, open up the right side chest and shoulder. Thread this right arm through underneath you, bringing the side of the head down to the mat. So starting to get some work into that right shoulder. You can leave the left hand right in front of the face. Or if you're comfortable here, you could reach the left arm up to the sky, turn that left palm to face behind you, and wrap the left arm behind the back. And the hand goes wherever you get the most space in the left side chest and shoulder. If the arm's behind the back, reach the left arm all the way up to the sky. Left hand comes down in front of the face. Press into the left hand to come back up to both hands, back in tabletop. Same thing, but other side. Left arm reaches up. Thread the left arm through underneath you, coming down onto the side of the head. Right hand stays in front of the face on the mat, just so you start to get used to the pose, switching directions. See how the shoulder is doing. And then once you find enough comfort here, you can stay here or maybe reach that right arm up, turn the right palm to face behind you, wrapping the right arm behind the back. Right shoulder moves away from the ear. So if it's going up toward the ear, keep moving it back. Right arm reaches all the way back up. Right hand down in front of the face. Come back up onto both hands. This time, walk the hands forward ahead of the shoulders. Tuck the toes, lift the hips. Downward facing dog. Hips go up and back. Belly hugs in. Maybe a bend in the knees. Maybe a pedaling out of the feet. Especially if this is your first downward facing dog, movement's always a nice way to start to find more length in the spine. And then you can work towards straighter arms and legs later. And from here, feet are hip width distance apart. Lift the heels up high so they go over the balls of the feet. Make sure your feet are hip width distance apart or a little bit wider so you can bring both heels over to the left. So one foot in front of the other, you're on the edges of the feet. You're still pressing the hips up and back. The hips want to go forward like plank. Stay in a downward facing dog shape, even though you have straight legs with the sides of the feet on the mat. Toes are going to the right. Come back to center, high up on the balls of the feet. Adjust the feet if you need to. Maybe they go a little wider. Both heels go over to the right. Lift the hips up and back. Keep the legs straight. Back through to center. Set the heels down toward the mat. They don't have to touch. Look forward, bend the knees, walk the feet up to the hands. You're coming into a forward fold at the top of the mat. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Do that 2 more times. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Last one. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. This time, circle the arms all the way up to standing. Hands come together overhead, down in front of the heart. Inhale, reaching the arms all the way up. On the exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fingertips to the mat. Step the left foot back behind you. Set that back knee down. Reach the arms all the way up. Low lunge. And then grab that left wrist with the right index finger, thumb. Pull it up and over to the right. You could bend the left elbow and grab for the left elbow with the right hand and still stay leaning over to the right if you want to get more into the shoulder. So either option's okay, either arm extended or bending that elbow and taking the elbow over with you with the right hand. Then come back up to center, arms reach up, back down to the mat, lift that back knee, step that left foot forward to the top of the mat. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Let's come all the way up. Circle the arms up on the inhale. Hands come together overhead, down in front of the heart. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold, fingertips to the mat. Right foot steps back. Set the back knee down. Arms reach up for your low lunge. Grab the right wrist with the left index finger, thumb. Pull it up and over to the left. See how this feels. You want to get some length on that whole right side of the body. Maybe you stay here. Maybe you bend that right elbow, grab the right elbow. You're still leaning over to the left. Now we're just putting the shoulder in another opening. Come back to center with the chest, reach the arms all the way up. Hands come down to the mat. Lift that back knee, step the right foot forward, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Circle the arms all the way up to standing. Hands come together overhead, down in front of the heart. Full Surya A. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, bend the knees, bring the hands down to the mat, step back to plank pose. Lower down halfway, chaturanga. Inhale up for your back bend. It could be up dog or cobra. Exhale back to downward facing dog. Few breaths here. Start to bend the knees, look forward to the top of the mat, bring the feet up to the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Circle the arms all the way up to standing. Hands come together overhead, down in front of the heart. Staying with your breath. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, bend the knees, hands to the mat, step back to plank pose. Shift forward onto the toes, bend the elbows halfway, chaturanga. Inhale up for your back bend. Legs are strong wherever you are with that back bend. Exhale back, downward facing dog. Bend the knees, look forward, bring the feet up to the hands. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fold. Arms all the way up to standing, hands come together overhead, down in front of the heart. One more time. Inhale, reach the arms up. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, bend the knees, hands to the mat, stepping back to plank pose. Lower down halfway, chaturanga, up dog or cobra. Exhale back, down dog. Bend the knees, look forward, bring the feet up to the hands. Inhaling up halfway. Exhale, fold. Take chair pose. So bend the knees, reaching the arms up, weights in the heels of the feet. And just to bring some more power into the legs, start to shift forward into the balls of the feet and lift the heels up high, still staying in your chair pose, keeping the chest lifted, core hugging in. So those outer thighs are coming in toward the inner thighs are going out toward the outer thighs. Like two hands pressing into one another. Then set the heels back down to the mat, come all the way up to standing. Hands come together, down in front of the heart. Just standing right here with the hands together in front of the heart. Chest is lifted. You feel the soles of both feet on the mat working. And then start to shift the weight over to the right foot. Can you hug that left femur bone into the hip socket until you can lift that left foot away from the mat? So you're standing on the right leg and the left foot is just hovering an inch, maybe less, away from the mat, still right underneath the hip. Maybe you start to play with kicking that left foot back, but keeping the upper body right where it is. So you won't be able to go very far, but you are trying to turn on all the muscles in the backside of that left leg and maybe challenge your balance a little bit. Chest stays lifted, core stays in. Try not to let those left toes turn out. They're still pointing straight forward. Then bring the foot back so that it's hovering over the mat. It's not touching the mat. You're still getting that lifting of the bones in the left leg. Then set the left foot down to the mat. Bend the knees, sit back, chair pose. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fingertips to the mat. Step the left foot back behind you, coming into a runner's lunge. And we're taking this up to crescent pose. So make sure the feet are hip width distance apart. Start to drive down through that right heel. Reach the arms forward all the way up. As much of a bend in the back knee as you want to bring space to the lower back. Think about hugging the outer hips in toward the midline and lifting the core. Straighten the front leg. Keep reaching up away from the mat. Keep this action of lifting up with the upper body. Turn the toes to the left so that you're pointing toward the side of the mat. Then angle in the right toes. Turn the left toes all the way out. Bring the left forearm to the left thigh, right arm reaches up and over. So extended side angle, but you're facing the back of the mat. Look down at the mat, so down at that left foot. Bring the hands down to the mat, so you're coming onto the ball of the back foot. Step back, downward facing dog. Right foot steps up between the hands. Spin the left heel down flat, heel to arch or heel to heel. You're taking reverse warrior. So right arm reaches up and back, left hand's really light on that back leg, and there's a deep lunge in the front leg. straighten the front leg, still reaching up and back, reverse triangle. Bring the hands to the hips, turn those right toes in to face the side of the mat, and then angle in the right toes, turn the left toes all the way out. Shorten your stance, heel toe the back foot in a hair or two, look down at that left foot, put a bend in that left knee, and just step that right foot forward. You're back to standing at the top of the mat, regular way you started. And then bend the knees, sit back, chair pose. Weight in the heels of the feet, chest lifted. Same thing we did before. Shift the weight forward into the balls of the feet. Lift the heels up as high as you can. Keep that chest lifted, core hugging in. Outer thighs and inner thighs are pressing into one another. Squeezing them together. Set the heels down to the mat. You're in regular chair pose. Come all the way up to standing. Hands come together right down in front of the heart. Keep pressing into the hands. Stand tall. Feel both feet on the mat, gripping the mat, and all the muscles in the legs lifting up. Chest stays lifted too. Start to shift the weight over to the left foot. Hug that right leg into the hip socket, lifting the right foot. And then slowly start to work that right leg back behind you. So like it's the right foot's behind the left leg, but you're not leaning forward. You're still standing tall just until you feel all the muscles in the backside of the right leg start to turn on, even that right glute. Bring the foot forward until it's right underneath the hip, still hovering away from the mat. Set the right foot down onto the mat, bend the knees, sit back, chair pose, Utkatasana. Exhale, forward fold, Uttanasana. Inhale up halfway. Exhale, fingertips to the mat. This time, step the right foot back behind you, coming into your runner's lunge, feet hip width distance apart. Start here. Get your foundation with the legs and the feet. And then dig into that left heel, reach the arms forward all the way up, crescent pose. Shoulders away from the ears, maybe a bend in that back knee. If that helps you get more space in the lower back and lift those that front right hip bone up. Start to squeeze those outer hips in toward the midline. Keep the chest lifted, hug the core in, straighten the front leg. Reaching up. Turn the toes to the right, arms still reaching up, angle on the left toes, turn the right toes all the way out, right forearm, right thigh, left arm reaches up and over, extended side angle. Right knee, trying to stack that right over the right ankle, not going beyond it. You can definitely go behind it if you need to. Looking down at the right foot, bring the hands down to the mat, coming onto the ball of the back foot, step straight back, downward facing dog, switching legs. Left foot steps up between the hands, spin that right heel down flat, reverse warrior. Left arm reaches up and back. Straighten the front leg, still reaching up and back, reverse triangle. And bring the hands to the hips. Turn those left toes in, angle them in, turn the right toes out, heel toe the back foot in a little bit, shortening your stance. Look at the right foot, put a little bend in that right knee, step the left foot forward. You're back at the top of the mat. Then bend the knees, sit back, chair pose. Shift the weight forward to the balls of the feet, lift the heels up high. Chest stays lifted. Heels come down to the mat, come all the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. So we'll start to add on to that a little bit. So keep your gaze straight forward, shift the weight over to the right foot, lift that left foot up. Start to kick that left leg back. Same thing we did before. Inner thighs working here on both legs. So it's like you're trying to spin that left inner thigh back behind you to keep those left toes pointing straight forward. Take this to warrior 3. You're almost there. Just start to reach the chest forward. Go slow. You can put a bend in that standing leg, definitely. Try to keep the hips level as best you can. And those left toes still pointing down toward the mat. Chest reaching forward, hands pressing together in front of the heart. And then you'll start to bend the standing leg, reach back with that left foot, landing in a lunge, taking it up to crescent pose when you're ready. Arms reach up. Outer hips hug in toward the midline. Belly lifts, chest lifts, straighten the front leg, getting taller, reaching up toward the sky. Toes turn to the left, facing the side of the mat, angle in the right toes, turn the left toes all the way out, extended side angle, forearm to thigh, right arm up and over. Unless you feel open enough and that hand wants to come down outside the foot, you could even use a block here too, but chest is still opening up no matter where you are. Look down at the mat, hands to the mat, come onto the ball of the back foot, step back, downward facing dog, hold down dog, or take a vinyasa if you want one. Definitely skip them if they're not feeding your practice. Right foot steps up between the hands. Spin that left heel down flat. Reverse warrior. Take your time. It's a big transition. Straighten the front leg. Keep reaching up and back. Reverse triangle. Come up to standing, arms out wide. Angle in the right toes. Keep angling them in. Turn the left toes out. Triangle pose facing the top of the mat. So hip shift back, left arm reaches forward. Bring that left hand down, right arm up, Trikonasana. If you want to add the half bind, you could turn that top palm to face behind you and wrap the right arm behind the back. Everything else stays the same. Maybe if you have the half bind, you start to float that left arm forward, palm facing up. Still squeezing the legs, opening the chest up toward the sky. Come all the way up to standing. Hands come to the hips. Bend that front knee, look down at the left foot. Step that right foot forward to the top of the mat, Tadasana. Bend the knees, sit back, chair pose, Utkatasana. Shift the weight forward to the balls of the feet, lift the heels up high, get the outer thighs and the inner thighs pressing together like two hands. Set the heels down to the mat, chair pose. Press yourself all the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. Keep the hands here, you're pressing into the hands, keeping the chest open, both feet on the mat, legs strong. Shift the weight over to the left foot, lift the right foot, hover it away from the mat. Start to move that right foot back behind the left leg. Stay here, stand as tall as you can. Chest stays lifted. Inner right thigh spinning back behind you. So those right toes point straight forward. They're not going out to the right. Keep all of that. Warrior 3. Slow and steady. Start to bend that left knee. Reach the chest forward. Keep working that inner right thigh up toward the sky as you come forward. And you're pushing that right leg away from you. So imagine there's weight or a wall against that right foot. That'll help you lengthen the spine a little bit more too. Bend the standing leg, reach back with the ball of the right foot, starting in a lunge and then working your way up to crescent pose. Outer hips hug in toward the midline. Start to straighten the front leg, lifting the chest up higher, arms up higher. And then turn the toes to the right, angle in the left toes, turn the right toes all the way out, bend that front knee, right forearm, right thigh, left arm up and over, unless you want to come lower into your Parsvakonasana, maybe the hand outside the foot or on a block. Look down at that right foot, left hand to the mat, on the ball, the back foot, step back, downward facing dog, stay here, or Vinyasa. Left foot steps up between the hands. Spin the right heel down flat, reverse warrior. Left arm reaches up and back, right hand rests light on the leg. Straighten the front leg, keep reaching up and back, reverse triangle. Come up to standing, arms out wide, angle in the left toes, turn the right toes all the way out, triangle facing the top of the mat, hip shift back, right arm reaches forward, bring it down light, left arm reaches up. Start here with the arms 12 and 6 o'clock. Then maybe you decide, do you want to turn that left palm to face behind you and wrap the left arm behind the back? Keep squeezing the legs together, hugging the core in. Maybe that right arm starts to float forward, palm up. Bring yourself up to standing. Once you get there, hands come to the hips. Look forward at that right foot, put a bend in the right knee so you can step that left foot forward, top of the mat. All right. So we'll go through that one. We only have time to go through it one more time because it's so long, but maybe we'll do a little quicker. Bend the knees, sit back, chair pose. Shift forward onto the balls of the feet, lift the heels up high. Set the heels down to the mat, lift the chest, still in chair pose. All the way up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. So strengthen both legs, stay on both legs, keep the chest lifted. Now start to shift the weight over to the right foot, hover the left foot, hug it up into the hip socket. Then start to kick that left leg back. Stay here though. So fire up that left leg, feel that inner left thigh spinning back behind you. And now take warrior 3. So looking forward, chest reaching forward, maybe put a little bend in that right knee as you find Virabhadrasana 3. Hips are level, left hip really wants to lift up higher than the right. Take it back to crescent, lunge and then crescent. So bend the standing leg, reach back with the ball, the back foot, then reach the arms up, lifting the chest up, Anjaneyasana. Straighten that front leg, keep reaching up. So all the muscles in the legs are lifting up. Turn the toes to the left, angle in the right toes, turn the left toes all the way out, extended side angle, right arm reaches up and over, decide what you want to do with that left hand. Look down at that left foot, hands to the mat, step back to dog, stay here or Vinyasa. Right foot steps up between the hands, spin the left heel down flat, reverse warrior. Straighten the front leg, keep reaching up and back. Come up to standing, arms out wide, angle in the right toes, turn the left toes all the way out. Trikonasana triangle pose. Hip shift back, both legs straight, left arm comes down, right arm reaches up. Maybe a half bind. Turn the right palm to wrap the face behind you, wrapping the right arm behind the back. Maybe float that left arm forward, palm facing up, squeezing the legs, hugging the core, opening the chest. Bring it all the way up to standing. Hands come to the hips. Look down at that left foot, put a bend in the left knee, step that right foot forward, top of the mat. Bend the knees, sit back, chair pose. Shift forward onto the balls of the feet, lift the heels up high. Chest stays lifted, even though the legs are going down a little lower. Heels come back down to the mat, back in chair pose, weight in the heels of the feet. Come up to standing, hands come together, down in front of the heart. Press into the hands, find that focal point in front of you, get the legs strong, keep the chest lifted, shift the weight over to the left foot, hover that right foot away from the mat, still right underneath the hip. Then start to kick that right leg back, but stay standing upright. Inner right thigh spins back behind you. Take your time, warrior 3. So when we go slower, we can keep better control of the wobbling, have a smoother transition, and feel the strength it takes to go from one pose to one that's much more difficult. Come back to your lunge, take your time, ball the right foot goes out to the right a little bit, arms come down, and then reach up, crescent pose. Straighten the front leg, still reaching up. Turn the toes to the right, angle on the left toes, turn the right toes all the way out, bend that front leg, Parsvakonasana, extended side angle. Left arm reaches up and over, keep opening up across the chest. Looking down at the right foot, left hand to the mat, come onto the ball of the back foot, step back to dog, vinyasa, or hold downward facing dog. Left foot steps up between the hands, right heel spins down flat, reverse warrior. Keep the lunge in the front leg as you reach up and back. Straighten the front leg, still reaching up and back. Come up to standing, arms out wide, angle in the left toes, turn the right toes all the way out, triangle pose. Maybe a half bind, turning that left palm behind you, wrapping the left arm behind the back. Maybe right arm floats up, palm facing up, just reaching forward. Come all the way up to standing, hands to the hips. Look down at that right foot, put a little bend in the right knee, step the feet together, top of the mat. Bend the knees, sit back, chair pose, arms up. This time, bring the hands together right in front of the heart, twist to the right. So you can keep the chest upright. If you want a deeper twist, maybe rest the elbow on top of the thigh or hook the elbow outside of the thigh. If your shoulders are open enough, you could also open up the arms wide, but only if you still can keep that length in the spine and the knees side by side. And then we gaze in the direction we're twisting in, staying with our breath, hips lower, chest higher. Hands come back together if you open them. Come back to center, reach the arms up, chair pose, still bending the legs. And exhale, forward fold. Heel toe the feet to the outer edges of the mat, so it's wider than hip width distance. Clasp opposite elbows. Nod the head yes a couple of times. And then no a couple of times. Some of you like to sway side to side. If that doesn't bother the lower back, try it. And then remember which forearm is in front so you can switch next time we're here. Hands come back down to the mat, heel toe the feet, back to hip width unless you take a narrower stance for chair pose. Come up halfway, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold back to Utkatasana chair pose. Arms up, weight in the heels, hands come together, down in front of the heart, open the chest to the left, feel that twist here, stay here, or take it down lower, elbow to thigh, elbow outside of thigh. If you get this far and you did it on the first side, maybe you open up the arms wide. Chest is still reaching forward, hips are going down lower, knees and hips are even. Hands come back together, come back to center with your chair pose, reaching the arms forward and up. Exhale, forward fold. Widen the feet, bring them back out to the edges of the mat. Bring the other forearm in front in this forward fold. Maybe swaying side to side. If you need to nod the head yes and no to release the neck, take the time to do that. Hands come back down to the mat, heel toe the feet, back to hip width. Inhale up halfway, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, fold, bend the knees, hands to the mat, step back to downward facing dog. Last opportunity for a vinyasa. Maybe you skip it and you just hold downward facing dog. But if you want one more, take it, make it a good one. Go for quality. Once you get to downward facing dog, lift the right leg up and back, taking single pigeon. So right shin comes up behind the forearms, set that left knee down and scoot it back as far as you can. Top of the foot comes down. If this doesn't work and that right knee is talking to you, come on your back and do thread the needle. Otherwise, you can start to fold forward over this right leg. And if you have props, you can bring props. You can bring a block or a blanket underneath that right hip if it's lifted. I love a block underneath the chest and then just resting my head down. That seems to work best for me. You could also put a block underneath the head so that you can rest the forehead down on something. That's a good one if you're not down as low, but need to find some comfort in the pose. And since we're here, I'll just talk about it quickly, where that right foot could be. So I've taken a lot of flow classes where the idea is to get that foot forward and the shin parallel, but the hips have to be really open for that. That knee has to be in good shape for that. That doesn't work for everyone. So you just find where you can find the pose. Some of us might have this front foot, the right foot in this case, back by the left hip, and that's fine. The biggest part of the pose really is getting that right knee outside of the torso. That's when the hip opening comes in. So if you feel like the knee's going straight forward and it's underneath the chest, you're technically not getting that much of a hip opening. So thread the needle might be a good option for you. So as long as you can get that right knee out, you're probably in good shape. And then the farther forward that shin is, the more flex that foot is. So if the foot's back by the hip, you can't really flex the foot all that much anyway. But once you start going forward with it, then you want to start to flex that foot as much as you can to protect the knee. All right, I talked so much, it's already time to switch sides. Come back up onto the hands if you're in single pigeon. Tuck the toes, come back to downward facing dog. And it's nice to move that leg around. You can either pedal out the feet, or if you want to lift the leg and do some circles with the hip, you can do that with the knee. And if you're on your back, you can switch sides and go to thread the needle on the other side. The rest of us back in downward facing dog, lift the left leg up and back, bring that left shin forward behind the forearms. Get that left knee outside of the torso, scoot that right leg back. And you want to be so that the top of the foot's pressing down, the outer ankle's hugging in. So the big toe's pointing back. And then you can start to find your way forward, which maybe isn't that far forward. So don't force it. Use props if you have them to fill any spaces between the body and the mat. And you might find, especially with this hip opening, that the leg ends up in a different place than the first side. And sometimes we can do single pigeon on one side and we do thread the needle on the other side. That's great too. And you'll start to lift the head up if you're forward in single pigeon, bringing the hands to the mat, lifting the chest, setting any props off to the side, back to downward facing dog. If you're on your back, just stay on your back. You don't need to get up. And if you're in downward facing dog, pedaling out the feet or moving that left leg around, whatever you need to do to make that left leg feel a part of your body again. And you'll come back to downward facing dog, bring the knees down to the mat, set the feet off to one side and come to a seat on your mat, legs out in front of you. And then you'll come down onto your back and we'll meet everybody that was in thread the needle. If you have a block, you might want one. So just set it next to the hips as you come down onto your back. Setting up for bridge pose. So you can take a supported bridge. You've already done a hip opening. It might be nice to cool down that way. But if you want to take an active bridge, that's fine too. I'll leave that up to you. So press into the feet, lift the hips up. If you're using the block, place the block underneath the hips, not the lower back. And it has 3 heights, so choose the height that makes the most sense. If you don't have any props, you just hold that first bridge pose by either clasping the outer edges of the mat with the hands and pulling it apart, or interlacing the fingers underneath you. If you're on the block, you'll stay on the block for all 3 rounds. If you don't have anything underneath the hips, it's time to bring the hips back down to the mat and you'll rest there for a couple of breaths before you come into the second round. And when you're ready, come back up second round if you're not using a block. And if you are using a block, you could adjust the height and come up a little bit higher if you feel like there's more space to do that, keeping the chest lifted, chin away from the chest. If you're going to the tallest height of the block, you could go the narrow way of the block underneath the hips. Doesn't seem like it would be as supportive, but try it, see if you like it better than the block the wide way. And if you're in an active bridge, take one more inhale and exhale, let the hips come back down to the mat. Resting here. If you're on a block, stay there. And if you're doing active bridges and you feel open enough for Urdhva Dhanurasana, a bigger back bend, you're welcome to take that. Your shoulders are certainly open, but we haven't done a lot of back bending today. So that's something that needs to be very comfortable in your body. So when you're ready, press into the feet, lift the hips up, bridge pose. If you're taking something deeper, hands go back by the sides of the head. And then you press up onto the top of the head so you can plug those shoulders in, and then pressing into the arms and the legs at the same time, lifting yourself all the way up into upward facing bow. Trying to stack the shoulders over the wrists if you're all the way up. And if you're all the way up, chin comes toward the chest and you set yourself back down. If you don't have a block underneath you, set the hips back down to the mat. And if you do have a block underneath you, lift the hips up. You might need to come onto the balls of the feet if you have it all the way up. And we'll all bring the hips down toward the mat. Hug the right knee in toward the chest, leaving that left foot right where it is on the mat. And switching sides, right foot comes to the mat, left knee comes in toward the chest. Left foot to the mat, scoot the hips over to the right, bring the knees over to the left, spinal twist reclined. Bring the gaze over the right arm that's right outside of the shoulder. Eyes can be closed. Letting yourself just naturally drift into the twists. And start to come back to center. Use the feet to find center on your back. And then you'll press into the feet, lift the hips up, scoot them over to the left. Knees come to the right this time. And the left arm reaches outside of the shoulder. The neck's okay with it. You can look in the direction you're twisting in over the left shoulder. Start to find your way onto your back again. Bring the knees in toward the chest. Take happy baby. Open up the knees wide. Grab the inner or outer edges of the feet. You could also do something lower like the ankles or the calves, even the backs of the thighs. Same thing here. Knees wider than the torso to get that hip opening, and hips go down toward the mat instead of curling up. You can rock side to side if you want to. Head's resting down on the mat, chest is open. Knees come back in toward the chest. Give yourself a squeeze, close the eyes, take a big inhale in through the nose, holding it at the very top. Sip in a little bit more air through the mouth and exhale, Shavasana. Extend the legs out in front of you. If you have props you like to use or something to cover the eyes, go for it. That always makes it better. And if you'd rather come up and do a seated meditation, you're welcome to do that too. Just finding stillness in the way you're most comfortable is the goal. And you'll start to wiggle the fingers and the toes. If you're on your back, stretch the arms overhead, starting to wake up again, getting long in the body. And walk the feet in, bending the legs. Roll over to your right side. If you don't have a pillow underneath the head, cradle the head in the arm. And if the right side doesn't work, you can go to the left side, but ideally the right side. Using the hands, bring yourself up to your meditation seat, however you're comfortable seated. Could be on the mat, could be up on a block or some other prop. Sitting up tall with the eyes closed. One more moment to yourself with gratitude for all your body can do right now. Bring the hands together. Left side of the body meets the right. Bow the head. Take a moment to honor and acknowledge your heart and your spirit. Feeling that connection, as well as everyone around you. Bring the head back up. Blink open the eyes. Namaste. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoyed that flow. It got you into your bodies and out of your head, even if it was just for a breath. All right. See you guys next time.